And we are live. Another episode of Alive with Joey, Raw, Open, Vulnerable. Episode 7 already. I cannot flip and believe it. And today is a very special guest for me. One of my best friends, a man who's done so much for me and my family over the years, Dr. Daniel Chenier. Welcome.
Thank you, Joey. Thanks for having me on the show. Awesome. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. We've talked a lot about our evolution. Over the years, I've known you for it's got to be 12 years or so.
At least, yeah.
At least
a little more than that. Yeah, a little more than that.
And I remember talking to you about, maybe I'm going to have a podcast one day, and I'd love to have you on. Yeah. And it's like, it's a really weird.
It's finally happening.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, we've collaborated before.
We have
in my office, where we've done some programs with people, and you came in and did a little bit of group hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And I did some group exercises where we brought people through different stages of consciousness, and that was a fun time. So I'm happy to be collaborating with you again today.
And it's funny you talk about that day, the group. That was one of my biggest moments coming out of school, as a hypnotherapist. And I remember you giving me that opportunity, and I'm just going, I remember my heart racing. I went home and I'm jotting notes down. I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to bring the most value to these amazing souls that are already getting so much from you? But man, I still remember the energy and the excitement I had, even telling Mel, like, Dan wants me to do this. Like, I can't believe it. Like, I was just so beyond excited. So I think it's a good time to start here. Like, tell me a little bit, tell my viewers a little bit about yourself and kind of what you do.
Okay. So I'm a chiropractor. I went to school in Atlanta, Georgia, for chiropractic. And so I'm a licensed chiropractor practicing chiropractic in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I trained in a specific discipline, a specific chiropractic technique called network spinal, developed by a chiropractor by the name of Dr. Donnie Epstein. And so with that, I had a special interest in helping people to experience more states of consciousness, non-ordinary states. I've always had a special interest in those areas. And so I touched on the fact that Joy and I collaborated in the past in the office, and some of the group programs that I've done. And I've, like I said, worked with Joey in respects to that, where we take people through different exercises that are not chiropractic, but exercises that involve certain breathing techniques and movement and states, eliciting certain states of consciousness, non-ordinary states. And I know Joey is a master at that kind of stuff. So in working with him on that particular program was a real gift. And we had some amazing feedback from people who attended the event live. And so, I'm hoping we'll go a little deeper into what the work entails as we sort of tie it into some other topics.
So why do you feel these non-ordinary states of consciousness are so important for us to experience? Because a lot of people don't even know what that even means, number one. A lot of people in my life even don't even really understand what that means. So maybe describe what an altered state like that is, or an elevated state of consciousness, and why that's so important.
So this came up. We had a bit of a conversation the other day, and this came up when you asked me the question. I think you were asking me how my intuition ties into the work that I do. And I was talking about how, it depends how you define intuition. Right. Some people will look at it more as, well, it's not really intuition. It's just being a keen observer of patterns and pattern recognition, if you will.
Sure.
And so with experience and with being a keen observer, you can develop that pattern recognition, which is a gift. It's an asset and a tool, but also it can hinder the process. And the example I gave is, there's experiments that have been done where there's a certain puzzle which involves maybe some blocks of some kind. I don't know the exact details of exam or of the study, but they have certain blocks that have to be organized in a certain fashion, a certain geometry, in order to unlock a door. And when they give adults this task in the study, the adults can barely solve the puzzle, if at all. And then they give the same task to a toddler who doesn't have that keen sense of experience, and pattern recognition hasn't been developed yet.
Right.
So when they give that task to the 3-year-old, guess who solves the problem 1,000 times faster? I'm exaggerating. I don't know the exact details of the study, the outcomes, but I know the outcome was that the child, without that preconceived notion of what should happen or what should unlock the door, solved the problem a lot faster. So the idea there is in adults, if we can suspend, so if we can use those keen observation skills to our advantage, great. But there comes a time where you also want to suspend those patterns. And there's a part of the brain, they call it the default mode network, which is kind of what the term says. It's basically your default mode. It's your been there and done that of the adult brain. And the been there and done that of the adult brain can actually hold you back and prevent you from solving some of these complex problems that a 3-year-old could solve, because they're not hindered by that preconceived notion of what's supposed to happen. So to them, the sky's the limit. And so they'll organize the blocks in a way that seems so random and messed up that it would never work based on our experience as an adult with experience, and it works. So so when talking about altered states, if we can suspend that default mode network periodically for periods of time, then we can access an altered state where the parts of the brain that don't normally communicate with one another start communicating, and it creates what some experts call lateral thinking, sometimes referred to as flow state in certain circles. And there are certain qualities and characteristics in that state that are elicited, and they allow you to perform and to behave and to perceive things in ways that you just couldn't using your regular default mode network and experienced thinking. So that's where sort of these altered states come in, and accessing these altered states can be achieved in many different ways. I mean, I've got strategies and technologies that I've learned over the years and developed to a certain degree in my own practice, where we can help people access these altered states or non-ordinary states of consciousness through certain technologies and practices, through some body work and through chiropractic specific adjustments and specific work that I do with respiratory patterns and certain body movements. And I can name those techniques and strategies down the road if you guys want, maybe even give you a little touch of an example of one. But what's important now to answer your question is that the more we can access these non-ordinary states, one of my teachers always says, the more we can access these non-ordinary states of consciousness, the more extraordinary our life can become.
I couldn't agree more with that. And I think a lot of the people here, you know, I talked a little bit about my meditations that I run on, I lead on Sundays. I kind of started those going, okay, well, let's create a space where we can, you know, feel some energy. You know, I started just with like energy in the hands, and that's just using focus and being aware of our bodies, you know, just being aware without the mind getting in the way. And that those have evolved to what I called meditations. But in the end, I think what I've done is just created a space for people to have a unique and experience in an altered state, you know, using breath work, using focus, using, you know, all these different little techniques that I've learned with hypnotherapy and my meditation practices, to give them and some of the feedback I get from maybe just one time, how their whole life changes because they're able to see stuff just so differently after that one moment. So,
and that's it, that moment, right? So even if it's a moment, so I've heard it said this way. So if this is sort of if they say there's an opening at the base of the skull, and for chiropractors this is a really important thing, because the foramen magnum is the opening at the bottom of the skull where your brainstem, it's basically an extension of your brain, comes down into your neck, and into the atlas, the top bone in your neck, and then it turns into the spinal cord, and it supplies the rest of your body with all the communication from your brain to your body and your body back up to your brain. And even if it's just for a moment that people access. So I've heard it said this way: in some cultures, they call the foramen magnum the mouth of God. And
Wow.
so if there's a subluxation or some kind of disturbance at the upper neck where the foramen magnum isn't completely available to transmit the signals, if the signal is coming through and it's distorted, so let's say it's distorted, it's not perfectly lined up, it's distorted just a little bit. So the signal is coming through and it's kind of,
Right. Yeah.
and then for a split second,
Right.
and it goes back to that.
Yeah.
Even if it goes back to that, even that split second
Yeah.
moment
Yeah.
of having the quote unquote mouth of God be open,
Right.
wow, that's transformational.
Undeniable. And yeah, the transformational is, you're absolutely right. That one moment.
Even if it's just for a moment. And the more moments you can have like that, well, potentially the more transformational your life can be, the more magical your life, and the more extraordinary your life can be.
So there's a really cool question. I want you to touch on this. I'm going to put it up here. It says, is this like using chiropractic to awaken the Kundalini?
So short answer, yes. And although that might not be the ultimate outcome, that
Right.
may be one of the effects
Right.
that happens. So for example, in the work that I do, there are two waves, healing waves, that are produced. And some speculate that these waves resemble the Kundalini energy as it travels up and down the spine. And it circulates in a helix, and then it circulates through the brain and then back down to the root chakra again. So yes, there are some strong resemblances.
Right.
I'm not going to deny that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
felt
that's pure creative energy. Sorry to interrupt, but that's pure creative energy. It's feminine energy. As the wave comes through, it's feminine energy and it's pure creative energy. Yeah.
brother,
So yeah,
that
to answer that, yeah.
you just gave me chills, because I remember a few times I've been on your table, and the amount of energy that opened up after just a few minutes just being in your care. Not because I'm not coming into your office because I'm injured or I'm out of whack.
Right.
I'm just, I was pretty regular in your office, just
Right.
making sure I was in tip top shape.
Yeah.
But I think one of my first Kundalini experiences was probably on your table, and I didn't even know it. I'm just thinking about it now, going,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah.
Because I've had a few since, on my own.
Yes.
And I knew a lot more about it. You could have told me what a Kundalini awakening or experience was. I wouldn't have known at the time.
Yeah. So you had it happen organically
Mhm.
with just some subtle force applications. And I've had many people attest to that, who've told me after the fact, either it's facilitated that Kundalini energy coming through in a person who's never really necessarily experienced it before, or in people who have had some practice, they've attested that, wow, it's made my practice so much more effortless when it comes to accessing that. So yeah,
That's unreal.
your experience is real. I want to acknowledge that. Your experience is real. Not only is it real, but it's measurable. And there are several universities, several research departments of approximately a dozen universities that are researching this work. And sometimes it's not always their physiology department. It's often their mathematical and engineering departments that are studying the work, because the mathematics that are behind this wave that comes through, A, it's measurable, and B, they can compute it. But historically, when they first started measuring it, my teacher, the developer of this work, Dr. Donnie Epstein, he used to tell us how, it would take these high tech computers, and we're talking like, I don't know, maybe 15-ish years ago. Right. It would take high tech computers like 10 to 15 minutes to compute the algorithm that surrounds the mathematics of the wave.
Wow.
And so that's a long time for a computer to process. Nowadays, obviously, things have come a long way, so it's probably not that long. But just to show how complex the mathematics even, and they call it nonlinear mathematics. It's beyond me and my understanding of mathematics. I'm not so worried about the understanding of the mathematics behind it, but just the fact that it's happening and it's helping people to transform their lives is pretty phenomenal.
So tell us a little bit more about Donnie, because I know you hold him in such high regard. Like he's kind of like
Yeah,
one of your
he's
yeah
one of my teachers. I mean, he wasn't one of my teachers in school teachers, but
right
postgraduate education, I did as much work with him as I could from the year 2000 until now. And he's the developer of Network Spinal. He's the developer of a program he calls the 12 Stages of Healing and Somato-Respiratory Integration Exercises, which is a series of 12 exercises that are designed to elicit 12 different stages of consciousness. And these are stages of consciousness that will, back to your question about non-ordinary states, these are states that people are designed to experience.
right
And we'll often experience these stages in times of really high emotional charge or really emotionally charged events in our lives, whether it be a happy event or a traumatic one, or even at the time of death. There are specific rhythms and patterns that are observable. So he developed these strategies so that people could experience these exercises and tools to allow people to experience these states without having to be in a traumatic event in life
right
or on the brink of death or on your deathbed. You could experience the wisdom behind these stages, behind these states of consciousness, experience the wisdom behind them while you're still alive and healthy, and just use it as a tool for growth.
Can you explain? So you said there's 12 stages, and
12,
I
yes.
don't want you to go dive too deep in. Can you explain what the 12 are?
Yeah,
Or
without going into details, because I mean, we could go, pretty deep down that rabbit hole. Maybe, that might be another program
yeah,
altogether in and of
yeah,
itself. But it goes from everything from, I'll explain the groupings of them. So it goes from
sure,
stage one, which is suffering. Feels like nothing's ever going to work. Feels like nothing. Feels like this situation which feels helpless and hopeless is never going to end. And when a person's in suffering, if you tell them, listen, hey, just think positive, look on the
yeah,
bright side,
yeah.
it doesn't work, right? Like,
No,
sorry, when you want to transform something, the best way to keep perpetuating it would be to try and run away from it.
right.
And so a lot of times people find themselves running away from suffering, and it's a perfect strategy to perpetuate that suffering. And so stage one, stage two, which we can do a little deeper dive into, I think, on this call.
Let's do
Stage
it.
two is polarity. So we have different rhythms, different parts. We have opposite parts, opposite rhythms. We have a conversation of it's right, it's wrong. If it wasn't for you and people like you, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. And it's that guy's bad. He's a good guy. He's a bad guy. We see a lot of polarity on the planet right now. Okay,
Right. What a perfect time
without
to talk.
going into what's right or wrong, just this, it's there. Okay, Russian man bad, Ukrainian man good. That's steeped in polarity. Without, I'm not judging, saying what's right and what's wrong in all this, but there's a lot of polarity. The pandemic, yes, mandate's good, mandate's bad. It's steeped in polarity. Yeah, you can go visit your family. No, my family's not going to allow us to visit them.
Right.
It's creating a lot
Yeah.
of divide. So
Yeah.
polarity can cause a lot of divide, but on the other side of polarity there's really rich gifts. Okay, so polarity also allows people to stand up against social injustice and say, no, enough of this racism and slavery, it's got to end now. That's polarity. Like, this is bad, it's got to end now. So there's a time and place for polarity. It needs to happen.
Right.
Cancer cells, avoiding polarity is a perfect way to allow proliferation of cancer cells. So I'm not going into treatment of cancer here,
Right.
but the ideology and the consciousness behind cancer. If someone's invading your house, okay, so it's great. And I get the impression a lot of my clients and a lot of your clients, we like to look for this state of awaken, right? The state of oneness and love and peace and unity. And
Right.
that's awesome. And so it's not or, it's and there's a
Right.
time and place for you're invading my house, you're threatening my family, then the well-being of my family and myself. You got to get out now. And I'm not sure what kind of explicit language you can use on your podcast here, but
Yeah.
I'm being diplomatic. Okay, I'm
Right,
using
right,
very
right.
diplomatic, politically correct words here. Okay, but in true polarity, you wouldn't use such diplomatic
No.
words. It's get the F out of my house now.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's important because we have certain cells that are broken down and replicating in a bad way, cancer, i.e., and our immune system's constantly keeping them in check and booting them out of the house. That's polarity.
Right.
Get out. You don't belong here. You're done. You're out of here.
Right.
You're out now. Not another second now. So there's a time and place for that polarity. On the other side of polarity, with regards to relationships especially,
Right.
it's beautiful because we can then come to the conversation and say, I can say, Joey, there's no one on the planet that can disagree more with you than me. I totally disagree with you.
Right.
But let's hang out. Let's go for a bike
Yeah.
ride. Let's do lunch. Let's
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah.
So on the other side of and the other part of the other side of polarity, really important, which again, it's a little harder to articulate for people, especially when we're used to skipping over that stage and going to the more advanced stages, the stage 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which are very connected to the oneness of life, the web of life, and the oneness and the one love and the one source. It's a beautiful state to be in. But as Tony Robbins often says, he says, when you're in the season of awaken all the time, that's when people come and take your furniture. So that's not as much stuff gets done, right?
Right.
So you're in a state of being, which is great. It's beautiful. But you're not in a state of doing, which is the in between. So it's the intermediate season. So we have the season of discover, the way my teacher, I'm not taking credit for this work here. This is Donnie Epstein's work. The season of discover is those first few stages where there's suffering, there's polarity, there's recognizing I've been stuck, there's reclaiming your power. These are all different themes or different consciousness that we're connecting with in the season of discover. And we haven't quite developed the authentic power that I can do this. I got this. In the second season, there's a season of transform, they call it. Now there's a sense of self that's really developing. An ego, okay?
Right.
Which again, the ego has been vilified in a lot of circles.
Sure.
And there's a time and place for the ego as well. There's a time and place to suffer and recognize that, it feels like this is never going to freaking end. I feel so alone.
Right.
And then there's a time and place to say, get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah.
You're invading, you're going to hurt my family. This got to end now. And this injustice has to end now. And then on the other side of it is, wait a minute, I disagree with you, but we can still be friends. And on the other side, where I was going with this is, not only do I disagree with you, but there are parts of you that are just like me. There are parts of me that are just like you. And parts of me are contributing to this problem. And then if you take it one step further, there's a Hawaiian practice called the Ho'oponopono, which speaks to this stage. It's just different practices, different terms, but they're speaking to that same, the shadow effect. Ho'oponopono says, basically, it doesn't just say I'm contributing to this problem. I am the problem. And just by acknowledging that, the charge over it is diffused and you can move on and be more productive in life. My teacher, again, I was listening to my teacher the other day and this struck home for me. And he was talking about polarity. He's talking about how we are really good at messing up our own lives. We've become really good at it. And I got really good at it over the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, so I was hoping you'd dive into this a little bit.
So he was describing polarity. And he says, and what struck me, he says, you know what? You've become really good at messing up your own life. The universe is abundant, right? And the universe is abundant and it'll bring you more. It'll bring you more of what you want, or it'll bring you more of what you don't want.
Exactly.
So if you keep wallowing in polarity over figuring out, well, I'm right and I'm going to prove I'm right, I'm going to prove you're wrong, and this is conspiracy and this is truth, and oh yeah, I saw you post that online and I'm gonna show you. Okay, is that the greatest good that you can do? Is that the biggest gifts that you're bringing to the world? So instead of focusing on the outcomes, on the change that you're producing, you're focusing on being a right or wrong. And that's the beginning of polarity, right? So I was like, oh man, it hit home for me because I was sabotaging my own life over the last probably 3 months. It really came to a head with everything that's been going on in the world right now. And you see people posting memes online and I'm like, oh, that's a funny one. I want to share that one. And it's like, well, yeah, but what's the outcome that you're going to get in sharing that? You're going to insult 90% of the population because they might not get where you're coming from. And then you're not gonna be able to help. Are you really helping? Are you really bringing change and transformation to the world by putting up that sarcastic, insulting meme?
Yeah. Well,
So
we
yeah,
we
go ahead.
talked we talked about that too yesterday a little bit, and what was the quote you said? I have it here. You said, I want to get it because I love this so much. It's better to light one candle than to curse the darkness.
Yeah. So that's Palmer. That's the developer of chiropractic. I'm again not taking credit for that stuff.
See, I
That's
got
some sweet
goosebumps
stuff.
saying
Goosebumps for me too every time. I've heard it a million times, and
better to light one candle than to curse the
to curse the
darkness.
darkness. Yeah.
And that resonates so deeply. And because I think we've all kind of struggled over the last few years on our beliefs and what we see was going on, regardless of what you think of or what you think is right or wrong, that
Yeah.
polarity.
Yeah.
And using our platforms, like for myself, I got almost 200,000 on TikTok, and I got a pretty good following on Instagram. And things have gone really well for me over the last few years. And it's like so many times I'm like, I got to share this because this is right, or this is crazy. Look at this craziness. How are you not seeing it? Whatever it may be. And I tried doing that a little
Yeah.
bit, and I realized that's not where I'm most effective. That's not where I shine brightest. That's not where I can use my gifts to their
Yeah.
and I tried. I just couldn't. I kept coming back to what can I really offer? What am I really good at? And how do I, I can't even get the words out, but yeah, how do I make the biggest impact? There it is.
That's it.
And so it's just really interesting because I did struggle with that a lot because
it's easy to get caught up into that polarity, because that ties right back into that stage 2 polarity. It's easy to get caught up in it, and it's important to just acknowledge it. The shadow effect by the late Debbie Ford. Basically, her work is just acknowledging it, and you can wallow in it. You can do a deep dive into it, but at the end of the day, even just having the conversation that says, wow, there are parts of me that are just like that guy that I despise.
Right.
And I'm fueling this. And by not acknowledging that, you're actually potentially fueling some act of violence somewhere on the planet.
So talk about that a little bit, because when I heard you say that, I was like, whoa, what do you mean? I mean, I understand it, but I want to know a little more about that. So,
right. So by saying it's all you guys, and if it wasn't for, look at that brutality that's happening over there in that part of the world, wherever it is happening, even in our own country, right? We've seen some crazy stuff happen in Canada, and it's like, whoa, that's awful of those people to do that, whoever those people are and whatever they're doing. It could be either side. Right? Like people were saying, wow, they're trampling an old lady with a horse. How dare the police do that? They're awful, evil people. And other people were saying, well, how dare they, blockade and stop the economy and protest and stuff like that. So there was two sides, right? And no matter which side you were condemning, it's just by ignoring the fact that I'm part of that there's part of me that's like that guy on the horse that trampled the old lady, and there's a part of me that's like the trucker that's protesting the way he's protesting. There's parts of me that are like both these sides.
Yeah.
By not doing that, by saying no, it's all them. Yeah, it's them, and I don't have any hate in me. I'm way beyond that. Just by doing that, you're potentially energetically fueling more of that hatred somewhere on the planet. And so just by having the conversation alone, or by doing certain exercises, or whether it be stage 2 polarity exercise or Ho'oponopono or shadow work, you can diffuse that. And you're doing not just yourself a favor, but you're diffusing some of that violence and polarity somewhere on the planet. So you may be actually creating more peace, love, and harmony on the planet just by acknowledging your own shadow.
I love it, man.
Yeah, I think powerful.
So I want to do a stage 2 exercise with you, but not just yet. First, I want to touch on, we talked about speaking your truth earlier. Mm-hmm. And I was talking a little bit about my, my experience with that. A lot of it came from just, hey, Joey, do you want to do this? Yeah, I'm fine. That's whatever. That's cool. No big deal. Yeah, let's, for this long? Yeah, that's cool. And deep down, I'm like, why did I even, I'm just going to go with the flow. And then I get into the situation and I'm right where I knew I'd be. Only if I would have just spoken my truth in that moment, which wouldn't have hurt anybody. They just wanted my opinion. I didn't. I just went, I'll go with the flow. I'm in it. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. And then I'm pointing fingers. And I'm going, well, this sucks. And it's blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I learned that lesson. So tell me a little bit about that
Yeah.
and how that kind of
I'm
coincides with
happy you
state.
asked that. I'm happy you asked that because here's the thing. This is something I was thinking about even before you, just right after you messaged me saying, hey, we're going to do this and collaborate again. And I started jotting down notes. I'm working on people, and it's like my laboratory as I'm working on people in my office, and I've got notepads where I'm taking notes on what I'm doing to people for the record, officially, of course.
Sure.
But I am also taking my own private notes of stuff that I'm being inspired with, and I'm observing. I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. Going to take this down. And I took this down. I said something along the lines, something I don't have written this next to me, but somewhere along, it's probably in my pockets. I've got my notes pockets full of notes and notebooks and whatnot when I get home from the office. But something along the lines of being authentic, expressing more authenticity in the world that has become so polarized. How do you do that? It's such a paradox, right? I want to bring my gifts. I want to do what I'm best at without, polarizing and creating more division in people. Yet I still want to bring them authentically. So does that mean I got to stifle my voice and not be authentic? It's a bit of a paradox, but here's what I concluded. It depends where you're coming from when you speak your authentic truth. So if I'm stuck in stage 2 polarity and I'm speaking my truth, and my truth is these memes online and these polarized, sarcastic remarks that you're right, I'm wrong, and I'm going to educate you and I'll show you why you're wrong, then that's probably not my highest authentic self, because I'm coming from a certain energy state, right? So if I can access a different state of consciousness and bring my truth from there, wow, or integrate, here's where the season of integration comes in, integrate that stage 2 polarity that I have and I acknowledge with another state where I'm bringing my gifts from a totally different perspective or different energetic or consciousness state, which is more inclusive, then I can do a lot more good for the world than if I just come straight at it from a stage 2 perspective. And I mean, you see people when it happens organically, when the season is right. You've shared this with me before, and I see it happen all the time on my tables when I access certain states and there's certain patterns that are starting to destabilize, if you will, and they're up for renegotiation. Holding patterns in the body physiologically. Person will start to cough. Their throat chakra is just like, and they'll be like, I'm not sick. I'm like, I know you're not sick. Don't worry. Let it out. Let it out. Don't stifle it. That's that root chakra that's starting to express and emote, and it can come out as a violent cough, sometimes even vomit or whatever will come up. But there's certain merging and purging, and it's just phenomenal what comes up when people start to access those states that were bound. The energy was where the energy was bound in a certain holding pattern in the system, and then when that starts to come through and starts to be up for renegotiation, the motion comes through. There's physical movement that happens in the body. There's breathing that happens. There's sound that happens. The energy gets transformed from a bound state to a free available state. And in that, I mean, it's just like in physics and like whatever 7 physics, where the energy isn't created. It's just transformed from one state to another. So my teacher Epstein, again, I keep using his analogies because they're great. He describes a piece of wood. It has bound energy, okay? So all the solid stuff of the universe, it binds energy in a certain way, okay? So it's only showing up as my computer because it's bound. The energy is bound in a certain solid way, a piece of wood, our physical body, etc. The energy is bound in a certain way. And so the wood is bound as wood, and there's information and energy in that wood, but it's not accessible. It's bound, it's solid. But if you light a match under the wood, it acts as a catalyst and it lights the wood. It transforms into free available energy, and it turns into ash, it turns into heat, it turns into smoke, it crackles and makes sound. So it gets transformed to a different state. It's a more free available state. So it's more volatile as it explodes or as it burns, as it combusts. It's more volatile, it's free available. So in order for change to happen, especially to the structure of the body, it's important that we take areas, holding patterns, physiological patterns of tension that are just really bound energy in the system, the way that the body has bound energy. And sometimes it just takes a small catalyst. It can be the sound of your voice, Joey.
Yeah.
It can be a light contact on a specific part of the spine that's still connected to ease, peace, and
Right.
flexibility that elicits a wave of energy that comes through. And all of a sudden, that area that was bound is now free available and it's up for renegotiation.
It's blowing my mind right now because the topic of healing came up in last week's with Nick Zai. We were talking about, he didn't really like the word healing, like emotional healing, inner child healing, because he's like, we're already whole.
Yeah.
And now that you're talking about this energy that's bound, it's stuck energy. A lot of this trauma is stuck energy in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not moving. And when we do the work, the trim, God, my hairs are just,
Yeah.
I'm just
I
on
feel
fire.
it, brother. I feel it.
And what's happening is it's expansion. We're allowing this stuck energy to expand, and it's like, and that's when it's coming up from coughing or crying,
right.
or
so you're not judging it as bad, and I think that's
No.
probably what your other guest was saying. Is like, I don't like calling it healing because it means that
Yeah.
you're getting rid of something bad. It's like,
Right.
no, it's not that you're getting rid of something bad, because inherent within the wound, inherent within the bound energy is
Yes.
your medicine. So don't get rid of it. Don't curse it and just try to eliminate it. Your medicine is in there. Your homeopathic, your energetic medicine
Yes.
is in there. It's like you're swallowing that homeopathic pill that it's the bad stuff's in there, but it's a certain quantity that energetically. So that's exactly it. The medicine's in there. So our obsession in our culture, our obsession with getting rid of pain,
Yep.
is doing us way more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
So when's the last time that pain drove you into a different direction in life?
Every single time.
Right. And the more you try to stifle it, the more you try to numb it or put it to sleep, whether it be through chemicals or through other practices or even through healing practices. There are a lot of people addicted to healing modalities because the goal is to get rid of pain. And so they're spinning their tires because that until you can get the wisdom out of it, it's going to keep showing up somewhere, somehow, or in some people in your life.
We all know the story of the guy that is on his 19th ayahuasca journey. Like there's addiction to psychedelics. There's addiction, not addiction necessarily, but that you're putting all the power in this, and
as opposed to accessing it from within. They say the moth and the angel are both attracted to the light. So it can become a slippery slope, right? Depending on what the outcome is that you're looking for. If I'm trying to move away from something, move away from pain, if I'm trying to run away from it, doesn't matter if it's a natural modality or even my modality. If a person's seeking my care and their goal is ultimately just help me feel what I don't like to feel in life, inherent within feeling it is the medicine that you're seeking. So
I've had it with my clients too. After, we do a full-on program, we do so much, and then something comes up and it's like, I need you now, I need you now, I need you now. I'm like, do you? Sit with this for a minute.
Yeah.
What's moving differently? What was that trigger? What is happening? And maybe there is work we can do, but a lot of times when they come to me for that, I need you, sometimes it's just the talk.
Yeah.
And asking them,
and that ties back into stage 2 polarity. I mean, the theme keeps coming back up because part of another element of the polarity is not necessarily that I hate you or that if it wasn't for people like you, we wouldn't be like here, whatever, blah, 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 that you're bad, I'm good. You're right, I'm right, you're wrong. It's also the concept of the magic genie where Joey, now you become the healer and you're the magic genie. You're going to save me. You're the one that has the power in you. I'm powerless without you. So that's still an element of stage 2, which is fine. If that's where the person's at, we can meet them there for temporarily, but we're going to have to help them evolve to the next level, where they finally recognize that, wow, I am the voice.
Dan, my heart's just like blowing up right now hearing you talk this. This is exactly what it is.
I know this resonates with you. This is exactly what we do.
Showing them that they are the one doing it all. Like,
when we're just ushering the process.
Exactly. Yeah, man. I'm so grateful to have you on right now. I knew this was going to be
grateful to be here, man. Grateful to be here. So that's some stuff that I think the world can use right now all the time. Right now, especially, there's a lot of it showing up on the planet in general. So a lot of people, especially, I get the impression your clients are kind of like mine, where a lot of them can connect and resonate with what's going on energetically in the world. And it's not always your stuff. You're you're connecting out there with stuff that you're experiencing and emotions that are running high, and your clients probably have a very intuitive and good ability to be able
Yes.
to resonate with that stuff. And it can be challenging at times, which kind of brings up another thing, which I don't know, maybe we save it for another time, but I get a lot of empaths that'll ask me, hey, you feel lots of shit. Like, how the hell do you not get sick? You have your hands on all these people all day
Right, right,
long.
right.
Like,
Yep.
how the hell do you not get sick with all this bad energy? But maybe we
Sure.
save that for another topic, because I've got strategies for people. I think your clients would really click with this stuff.
Well, let's give me one, because everybody wants to hear this. I know they're like, no, 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 let's not wait. We're gonna have you on, we'll
Are
have
you
you on
sure?
for sure. But give
Okay.
give us one thing
Yeah.
that you
So
to bring.
basically, one, and this might be all people need to hear when it comes to that kind of stuff, to sort of reframe it, is that's where, when you say, how do you protect yourself from taking on all these bad energies and negative,
Right, right,
first
right,
of all, you got to reframe that, because again, that's steeped in polarity stage 2. There's good energy and there's bad energy.
right.
Is there? There's energy, period, is the way I see it. And so you can only recognize, remember the old saying, takes one to know one. I don't know, that
Right.
was maybe when I was a kid.
Of
Like,
course.
that's a
Oh yeah,
comeback. Like, hey, if
absolutely.
someone
Of course.
insults you, just say,
Yeah.
takes one to know one, right? It's kind of like a nice comeback, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
It's the
It's
mirror.
true in that, in order to recognize, or for something to have an emotional zing in you and create a polarity, there has to be a part of you that resonates with it. Okay. So let me put it to you this way: when you see someone making a racist comment, and there's a part of you that's racist that just connected with that.
Interesting.
There's a part of me that's racist that just connected with that. If I get that, I
Right.
can't believe he just said that, I want to knock his teeth out. Well, there's a part of me that's racist, and I need to acknowledge that. That hasn't been
Interesting.
acknowledged. So that's a tough one for people to swallow.
That's
That's
a
a really
really
tough
tough
one for people to swallow. So back to the question though. Okay, so reframing it, first of all, from a different energetic state is important. So if you're going into a scenario and you're stuck in stage 2, yeah, you might really click with some of the crap that people, or some of the baggage that people
right.
are dragging along. Or if you're in an energy rich state, you will be able to use their baggage as medicine. So
Absolutely.
how blessed am I to be able to have my hands on hundreds of people every week, and being able to download all this stuff and go, oh yeah, now it's like you're exposing, I don't know, I'm not too good at computers, but they've got all the malware, the interrupt viruses from taking hold of your computer. Well, if you've got the download for all the viruses out there that exist, then that's pretty cool, right? But you first have to kind of recognize it, right? So if you've got the download for all these different energetic patterns that are presenting themselves to you, how good is that? I mean, what a gift is that? And what a different reframe that is from, ooh, put a white light around me and I'm going to hide from this person and I don't want to talk to them because they create a zing in me and they make me tired and they zap my energy. Well, I'm not making fun of that when it happens. Okay. Understand, it happens. It's real for
Right.
people, but you can transform that. But first you have to master transforming your own state. And then you can approach those circumstances and those people, and they are now your medicine, and they're a gift.
And look at how much power you give these lower vibrational energies, or this things, by saying, "Oh, ooh," you're making it this, just the word demon.
This
Talk about
demon,
people,
this demonic
right?
entity. Yeah.
Just the word demon.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I don't call
Yeah.
these, and
Sure.
I tell people,
I
stop calling it that.
stop
It's
calling
not.
that. I've seen very, 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 very few, probably 2 on the top of my head that I can recall, of cases where there was actually like evil, negative, malicious intent energetically
Right.
projected.
Right.
And I recognized it. And just by virtue of recognizing it, it was
Bingo.
completely neutral, or maybe even positive.
So I'll tell you a little story I had when I was in Guatemala. I was deep diving into my spirituality at that time in 2000. I can't remember, 19. and I was sitting in meditation. I was struggling this first week at the temple. We'd meditate every morning, or we'd do yoga at 7, meditate at 10, practice metaphysics at noon or something, and we did another meditation. So 2 meditations a day, an hour at a time, an hour long. And I struggled the first week. I went in there going, I'm going to meditate my ass off. Like, I'm going to be the best meditator, right? Like, and then this whole first week I was a mess. I was struggling. And I went into meditation after meditation at the house. And I said, what is blocking me? Where's the resistance? And I felt something really dark, really heavy. And I had felt that before in hypnosis sessions. And I always had fear around it. And then every time I had fear around it, the energy would get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I was like, wait a minute, what if I just stood there? What if I just sat with it and allowed it to be and just kind of stared at, like, I don't see it, but I feel it. And I just allow myself to be with it. And as soon as I let go of the fear, all that would just literally dissolve. All the power that the entity or whatever you want to call it had literally went to zero that quickly by just not standing my ground, just kind of being like, okay, this is just energy.
Yeah.
And
I resonate with that, man. I had those experiences as a child when I used to get nightmares, and I swear I would see stuff and see shit, and then be like bug-eyed for the rest of the night. And finally, I came to the conclusion that I was more powerful than this, and than whatever this was, and it just it dissolved into nothingness, and it never was a thing again. And so it reminds me of a quote that, again, I'm going to quote Epstein again. Sorry, everybody, but this is, I'm going to paraphrase. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are.
Of course.
So, yeah. So even back to when I was jotting down some inspiration, going, this paradox. How do I be authentic in such a polarized world? Well, the world really that polarized, or I am seeing the world as I am. I am polarized.
Of course.
So bingo, I'm polarized. Okay, got to work on that a little bit. All right, got to acknowledge it, period. Doesn't even have to be work. So the beautiful thing about this stuff that you do and that I do, the way I see it anyway, is that it doesn't have to be work. It can be work, but effortless work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this arduous journey of chipping away at our shit for the next 40 years. It can be spontaneous. It can transformation can happen so quickly in a heartbeat. And stuff that maybe you've been working on for 40 years, all of a sudden, bang, woo.
I'll tell you this, most of my clients who work one-on-one with me have been, not most, I'd say maybe 50 to 60% have been in therapy for years and years. And I'm not taking away from what therapy has done or does for people. It's not at all that. Mm-hmm. We sometimes do more in 2 sessions like that than they've done in 10 years. And again, not taking away from them, but I had a client the other day. It was her first time with me. And she goes right into past life regression. And most of the time when I have my clients in a past life, they kind of just drop in there. They go, okay, there's some work to do. Yeah. We'll do the work and we'll kind of go through this past life. It might even take 40 minutes for one lifetime. We go through all the major events of that lifetime and we do the work around it. This girl, the soul came in and goes, we're not fucking around. Boom, 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 boom. 9 past lives in about 32 minutes. And I was like, this is all she needs to know. Clear it up. This is all she needs to know from here. Clear it up. Connect the dot. Again, man, I'm just, And it was like, holy shit. And that's the first time in 4 years of doing what I do. The soul was just like, no, we're not fucking around here.
We're going there.
This, done, circle it, connect it, boom. And I was just like, what just fucking happened?
Yeah.
You know?
So it can be spontaneous, right? Like time's an illusion. And these things they don't happen in your time. I've heard it said you wanna make God laugh. Tell him your plans. Tell him your timeline. Right? It's not always going to happen in your timeline in the way that you have it set out. So it's cool. That's cool when you can access that so spontaneously and relatively effortlessly. Like I said, it's a little bit of work, but it's effortless work.
But when you can you know, when you get into that flow state, or you know, you're in alignment that day when everything's
Yeah.
feeling good, it's like, man,
Yeah.
it's not work. This is
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, it's not, isn't it great?
And
Well,
I
one of the elements of flow state, as some experts describe it, is time stands still, right? So there's a time dilation. You hear of people in certain circumstances where they're thrust into flow state. Like, oh, for example, a big example of it is Laird Hamilton surfing that really big thick wave. You're a surfer, you know more. Is
Jaws
it Jaws or Taifu?
Taipuho, or
Taipuho or something.
Tahiti.
Anyway, yeah, it's a really thick wave, right? It's like a really gnarly wave. Like it's thick
massive.
and it carries so much weight behind it. And many people have perished trying to surf this wave. So he's surfing it, and maybe it was Jaws, whatever wave, it's irrelevant. And all of a sudden, you don't have like a second to make decisions for the front. So the frontal cortex is the most human part of the brain. It's most developed in humans, is what I should say. So the opposite end of that would be a reptile, like a snake or a crocodile. They have the hindbrain, the brainstem, which is responsible for the vital functions. Your cardiovascular respiratory center are there. That's why you nick the brainstem like a bullet. Boom, that's it. It's game over. People take bullets through the head, they still live the rest of their life. Their personality will change, but boom, brainstem, done. All your vital centers are there. Your fight or flight centers are there. So you're gonna feed yourself. The 4 F's they call it. You're gonna fight, flight, feed, or what's the 4th F? Breed. So that's
okay, gotcha.
So that's the four F's that the brainstem is responsible for. That's all a reptile has the ability to compute, because they have only a hindbrain. Okay, so sorry if anyone has a crocodile or snake pet, but they're probably not thinking about how to cuddle with you and express more compassion and affection in the world. But as you go up the animal chain, animal kingdom, humans have the most developed frontal cortex, which is like the thickest files of the computer. They take longer to download. They're just more. They're 1 second.
No worries.
You turn right down, please. Yeah.
See, Dan's blowing
So
my mind.
so they're the. So back to the frontal cortex. So it's the thick files in the computer, and so when something traumatic is happening, you don't need to access those files. Okay,
Right.
so it would be not beneficial for you to sit there and compute with some complex algebraic equations or some deep states of spiritual access to what's my connection to the creator in all of this. No, it's not the time for that when you're falling off a cliff, right? It's like, where am I going to grab to save my life or jump to the next ledge? And those are all things that happen, or when you're surfing the big waves. So what happens is you have split second decisions to make. And so the element of flow is where Laird Hamilton is the example, where he's surfing the big wave, and all of a sudden he like reaches around with his backhand in a way that's opposite of what you would normally do when surfing a wave. You would drag the other hand. So I'm not sure which hand normally goes, but he wraps around and reaches with his other hand when he's about to bite it, and that stabilizes him, and he makes it out of the barrel. And when asked afterwards, it's like, what? How the heck did you think about? Well, you didn't think about it. There was no time. The brain could not actually transmit synapses and signals that quickly to compute that this would be a good idea. No, that's flow state. So time stands still. There's time dilation. There's a richness of energy that's experienced in that state. But what often throws a person into that state is there can be a challenge. And the challenge could be a life-threatening one, which often throws people into flow state. And there's a suspension of the default mode network,
of course,
which is right.
Yep.
And there's a suspension of time, a suspension of the default mode network. So you're going to behave in ways that are unusual, but may provide you the solution that's necessary. And all it takes, the studies show, that all it takes is a 4% incremental increase in the challenge than what you're comfortable with. So 4% outside of your comfort zone is all it takes to potentially act as a flow trigger. So
Wow.
it's an area that I'm fascinated with. I've been, just doing a deeper dive into flow state because there's so much more that can be achieved for humans when they're accessing flow more often. And all it takes is that. So if you're in your comfort zone, you're probably not going to be accessing flow state. You're going to be arduously chipping away and using force to get through things. And using the old school, you got to practice this 1,000 times or 10,000 times. You got to repeat this 10,000 times before you can become competent at it. Well, sorry, it can be a lot easier and more effortless than that. Doesn't have to be 10,000 times. These kids are pulling off moves that Tony Hawk took till he was 33 years old to do. The master himself took till he was 33 years old to pull off these tricks. 12-year-olds are pulling it off. They've been skateboarding for 2 years.
And
I'm not exaggerating. They're pulling it off. These like 980 whatever type of things on these mega ramps and whatnot.
It's insane. And you remember Travis Pastrana pulling the first dirt bike backflip in like 2000 or something. I remember going, wow, he backflipped a dirt bike. They're doing triple backflips. They're doing front flips. They're doing
and kids are doing it, right?
Yeah.
They're not spending 10,000 hours doing it.
So I love the fact that you said 4% out of your comfort zone, because my favorite saying that I've been saying for a while is like, take the leap and your wings will appear. Yeah. You got to get the fuck out of your comfort zone. And it sucks sometimes because it's just going to, it's pulling against everything that you know.
But the good news is that it doesn't have to be like twice as far out of your comfort zone than what you're comfortable with. It can be 4%. So make that 4% increase. And, there are other experts that say, listen, get used to making that 4% out of your comfort zone increase by doing things that are benign but challenging and scary for you that you're uncomfortable with. I know Tim Ferriss is a big proponent of this. Like, put yourself in situations that are challenging. It's this part of the Stoic philosophy, if you will. Put yourself in challenging circumstances. Could be only 4% challenge, so that you're inoculating yourself, if you will, against real challenges or real things that could be really scary in life. So do small, scary things on a daily basis so that you can inoculate yourself against these really bigger, scary things.
Man, I love that. I never even looked at, I've never heard of that. And that's magic.
It's cool. It's cool, right? But it ties right into that comfort zone thing, just stepping out of it.
Well, and you get, it's momentum after that, right? That's my favorite thing, is that momentum you get by taking those little bitty steps into something scary, or, like you said, something that might not be too scary, but challenging. As
sort of an exercise or training ground for it.
Okay, Dan, we only have a few more minutes tonight, but here comes my final two. I have my final two questions of the night that I've been
asking. Put me on the spot here.
I have to. This is
Bring it. I'm 4%. I'm stepping out.
Yes.
I'm stepping out of my comfort zone here. Do it. It's not rehearsed.
Something from Mr. Dan, something vulnerable from you that you might not have shared, whether that's from your struggles in the past, where you're at in life, something open and vulnerable that you could share with us that can bring us some value. What do you think? What do you got?
So I'm kind of reiterating what I started talking about, but doing a deeper dive into it, is that I have been steeped in polarity in the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. So this is a personal, raw thing for me. It's been raw. It hasn't been the best thing for me or for the world. And I'm acknowledging it right now in front of your entire audience. I've been a polarized bastard over the last 3 months. There's still parts of me that are. Right. But I can kind of laugh about it, like, and that's the other side of polarity, is that that was me. What a jerk I was.
I love it.
Sometimes I'm a jerk.
Yeah, man. Well, so am I, man. Funny. Okay, next question. Thank you for that. Next question is, what does being alive mean to you? Like, what does it mean to be alive for Dan Chenier?
See, I'm a perception guy, and I love doing stuff. Like I'm a big fan. Like you're big into water sports, surfing, big ocean, big mountain. I love that stuff. That makes me alive. But I'm also paradoxically very alive in a daydream. And not everyone resonates with that, especially doing people. So my wife is more of a doer. There's the do shit, right? She's behavior oriented. I'm perception oriented. So I can be comfortable in a daydream, and it pisses behavior people off because they're like,
Right.
why aren't you doing something?
Yeah.
But I can feel pretty alive in a daydream or gazing at a snowdrift in my backyard. And so, yeah, I you know, helping people in my office, watching them come alive really lights me up.
Yeah.
Like I had a busy afternoon this afternoon, and I work on multiple people at the same time. So I'm like constantly moving, and I was feeling really alive. Like I didn't take a moment to feel tired or out of breath. I felt really alive.
Man,
so that makes me alive. And you know, I mean, I don't want to be too vague and too like broad, but helping people the way that I'm working when I'm really in the zone. Like when you're working with me, you're in the zone, you feel alive.
Yeah.
Big mountain makes me feel alive. Big ocean makes me feel alive. We have Great Lakes here, or not Great Lake, but we have a really big lake here. And doing water sports makes me feel alive. Being with my kids, playing ping pong with my daughters makes me feel alive. Going for a walk with my wife makes me feel alive. I mean, the everything from really big dramatic things to, you know, basic things. Again, it's all a matter of perception, right? It doesn't have to be something that's earth shattering.
No, I get it.
So I hate that I'm being a little bit vague
No,
here,
you're not.
but I've got a spectrum. Maybe I'm on the spectrum. Sometimes I think I am.
Right. No, it's perfect,
but
man.
I can admit it.
Well, this show made me feel alive, man. I was
likewise
so looking forward to this, and
me too.
It was just perfect, man. I knew it would be. Is there anywhere on social media people can find you? Is there anything like that you want to?
I do have a somewhat of a presence. One of my head assistants, she takes care of my social media stuff, and so Dr. Daniel V. Chenier is my Facebook account. I believe it's also my Instagram account, Dr. Daniel V. Chenier.
I'll make sure to put
it in there.
The description below once I load this up. Make sure to put you there.
Cool. Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For everybody else, check out my links. Make sure you hit the likes and subscribe for the YouTube channel for me here. Check out my links if you're looking for the group past life regression program that I'm running in April. There's 2 spots left, I think, for that. And everything else is in my link tree on my bio there on Instagram and TikTok. But man, cool. Dan, thank you so much again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Had fun. Awesome. I hope we're able to inspire people and impact people's lives.
I think we're gonna have, maybe you might have to be on here every month.
Yeah, I'd love to come back anytime.
So
always
good.
A pleasure.
All right, everybody else, thank you so much. Next week we have Camille, who was supposed to be here last week or the week before, but we had some technical issues. But you're not going to want to miss next Wednesday. I love you guys so much. Thank you all for the support, and we'll see you Wednesday. Thank you again. Bye.